Good morning. My name is Michael Allen. I'm the GIS manager here at Greene County. And one of the main questions that I've probably been asked throughout my life is, what do you do for a living? And when you tell people that you work in GIS, then of course the next question is, okay, what in the world's that? And the problem that you get into is that there's not really a quick and simple answer to that question. And if you want to watch people's eyes gloss over really quickly, then get into a detailed description of what the textbook definition of GIS is. But quite simply, GIS is just geographic information systems. And essentially, we take care of the computer mapping needs for the county. We have an office staff of 5 people, and we're part of the IS department, and we maintain over 200 different geographic data sets for the county. GIS is really more than just a computer on a map. Each map comes with a lot of different components and data behind it. And probably one example that a lot of people would be the most familiar with would be something like Google Maps. It's not just a map. There's a whole lot of data that comes behind it. A lot of information that you can get. You can get information on traffic conditions and public transportation and driving directions. And then there's all kinds of features on the map that you can get all kinds of data if you click on, and a lot of different websites that you can go to. Another website that uses a lot of GIS is the National Weather Service, and all of the meteorological observations and forecasting have to have a location behind it, or they just don't make any sense. And you can see that in the kind of information that they produce. They're able to generate warnings boxes on these because they have a map tied in behind it. And of course, they're also able to look at population numbers and where the hospitals and schools and things are all that. And that's all because there's a GIS then working behind the scenes on that. So how long have we been doing this? In county terms, we are not a relatively new office. We have not been taking care of the county's mapping needs since 1833. But we really started doing this in the early 1990s when we began transferring from paper maps to digital format. And for years, maps like this were no doubt meticulously maintained in pen and ink and paper. And I think that we can see through that. We can see that through the historical maps that we have. And this is a map of Greene County from 1881. And there's a lot of information on this. But probably the 2 most prominent features that you can see when you look at this are all the tiny little squares on the map, which represent section, township, and range. And those are used to determine legal descriptions, and we're still using that today. And the other prominent feature on that is the big black lines that make the big black X through that. And of course, that would have been the railroads that would have been around in 1881. So it's a very interesting map. The next map that we have is from a plat book in 1876. And this is from an area, the northwest part of the county. It's up near Walnut Grove, I believe. And we still see a lot of the squares defined on this section, township, or range, but there's a lot of other attributes that are on the map. And if we zoom in on this, then you can see those additional details. You can see the tiny little solid black squares on this, and those are most likely probably individual houses, farmhouses that were there at the time. And you can kind of also see the artwork that was used, as the person who made these individually drew those symbols on the map to show churches and schools and things like this. And this artist level work was something that you saw a lot in older maps, and actually really didn't go away until very recently. And I go.
So how big are each of the squares with the numbers in?
Each
section. How large is that? Like, what's the size of it?
Of which square?
Like 29, like the square.
Oh, okay. That would be just a full section. So it would be, was that 640 acres? Is that right? Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris. All right. Where was I at? Oh, okay. Really, I want to tell a story. The first job that I took out of college, or at least I applied for out of college, I actually didn't get it, was somebody to work doing computers and mapping. But really, as part of the job description, they actually wanted somebody, in addition to those skills, that was also an accomplished graphic artist. Because even then, there was still this need for illustration abilities for making maps. And And, you know, you think about the old maps that we had from years and years ago, many times there was, you know, sea monsters and things that were drawn in as well. And we just don't have that anymore. Although it might be interesting if we put a Kraken in Fellows Lake from time to time, but probably have to use clip art. I don't have that ability. So now the next map that we have is from an atlas, and these are from the fire insurance maps that we used to have. This one is from 1918, and as you can probably tell, this is from downtown Springfield. This is probably the eastern side of the square, and it has a lot of information on here, but they were all information that was created for the purpose of looking at from fire and insurance. And if we kind of zoom in on this map, then you kind of see the level of detail that were on these things. They have property lines, they have buildings marked out, they have all of the measurements written out in feet. They have business names. They have lists of what the buildings are made of, what their heating source is, and whether or not they had fireproof construction. And if you're ever interested in looking at these, and I know everybody is chomping at the bit as much as I am, but the Springfield Greene County Library on South Campbell, the Library Center, used to have those books out for people to look at them, and they had them in the back, and they're huge books that you could go through and look, and they're just really interesting to look through. The next map is probably one of the very first attempts at computer mapping in the county. This was done by Planning and Zoning. And this is just one page from a mapping booklet that was produced in the early 1990s. It was done in AutoCAD, and it just had the basic information. But of course, the main focus would have been defining the county's zoning districts. And even then, though, it was created in digital format so that it could be produced as a paper map atlas. So I kind of wanted to take a minute and kind of look at some of the historical maps that we have to kind of give you an idea of where we've been and how far things have come in the last 100 years or so. And really the main catalyst for the creation of the GIS office here in the county was the move in the 1990s to the enhanced 911 system. And before this, people called 911 and they had to give all of that information out, their location. But with enhanced 911, the name and address information were automatically transferred with a call along with the police, fire, and EMS that responded to that particular address. And to make that work, then we had to have accurate address and street data. And of course, all of that data then had to be in a digital format. And along with that, people in rural areas then had to have a 911 style address. And so anyone that had the old postal route and box addresses then had to be readdressed. And that really took us about 2 or 3 years, I think, to complete from start to finish. And once that project was completed, then we had to continually maintain that data in order for it to be effective. And we began looking at other offices in the county and other data sets and other applications that we create. And so we mapped property lines for the assessor's office. We mapped city limits and district boundaries for the clerk's office, school, fire, voter, water, those kind of things. We mapped zoning boundaries and building permits for resource management. And just to take a look at one example, that I pulled up here was the building permits. We've gone back and mapped building permits to the database back to 1990. And so we just have this one data set, really has about 65,000 points in it. And each one of those points then has several data fields that we have up here that go along with that. And so this is a set that grows month after month after month. And doing this allows you then to be able to look at multiple permits for multiple years and look at it in one location. And this is just a small sample of what we have. All right, so really the scope of what we do can be defined by two things, and that would be data maintenance and data usage. And data maintenance is needed when we have information that comes to us on a regular basis that's constantly changing our data. Some of the data sets that we have are static, but most of them probably are always changing. And if you look at something like school districts don't change. The legal descriptions for those districts were set up many, many years ago, and they remain constant. But most of the things that we have do change. Things like addresses. The information in our addressing file changes daily. Now, we don't keep track of who lives at every address because that would be just an incredibly monumental undertaking. But the information in that file changes daily. I mean, structures are addressed, are readdressed. they're issued, buildings are demolished. And so this data is always in a constant state of change. And the changes that we try to keep up with in our data are really driven by two things. They're different but connected things. And one is the impact of constant development. And don't get me wrong, development is a good thing, but each new development requires a lot of work then behind the scenes as well. With that, property lines are constantly being combined and divided. New addresses are added. When that happens, it generates changes in our street data, addresses, utilities, stormwater, signage, sidewalks, and infrastructure, and all these things have to be mapped, and they all have data that goes along with it. Now, the other thing that we see is the impact of annexations. And just like development, annexations create all kinds of changes in our data as well. We see the changes in the way we look at our streets, addresses, fire districts, voter districts, and a change from county services to city services as well. And some of the annexations can clarify these boundaries at times, but there are times when we have piecemeal annexations that create issues for us, determining jurisdictional responses and the service responses as well. And so I was looking from the example that we have here on this map. If you wanted to go ahead and just pick a location anywhere on that where you wanted to have a house, then you'd need to ask the question, then if someone comes in for a building permit there, then who do they go to? If someone has a fire, then who responds to that call? And if it's time to vote, then what ballot do I get for that? And so constant development means that we're constantly in the process of updating all of this information so that we can get these things right. All right, the other part of what we do concerns data usage, and that's making all of this data available to all the different departments that use this. And the idea behind that is to try to help with the decision-making process. And for some offices, that might be third-party software that we supply the data for, or it may be programs that we put together ourselves. And so if we're looking at development, then what kind of things might be important in that process? Knowing where the FEMA floodplains are in a development, knowing where the sinkholes are going to be, or knowing what the zoning is, not only for the property that you're at, but around it as well, and the land usage, and whether or not it's in the flight path of the airport. And there's so much information that we can put together on these maps that it becomes very busy very quickly, as you can kind of see. And there's many other things that we can throw on there, but being able to put all of this together, I think gives us the ability to look at something and then hopefully be able to make a decision. Are things okay to proceed with what we're wanting to do here, or is there things that we see that maybe need some warrants some further investigation? Now, one of the things that we've used from time to time are population estimates. And we get good detailed information from the Census Bureau every 10 years from the federal government. And our office is the county's respondent for the Census Bureau. And with that, there's a lot of things that we have to do on a continual basis. They require a yearly audit of all of the city limit changes that we have. They require an audit every 10 years for every address in the county. And I know that on the surface that might seem like a lot of fun, but each of these programs just take a long time to complete. And of course, they have a lot of federal paperwork and things that go along with that. And we are already getting emails concerning our work with them on the 2030 census. And so it's a program and a thing that's continually we're always working through. But the issue I think that we get into is that since we're in an area of constant development, then a lot can happen in 10 years' time. And so how do we continue to do reasonably accurate population estimates between the 10-year census programs? And one way that we have been doing that is through residential household estimates. The Census Bureau gives us, if the Census Bureau gives us a number of, 2.2 residents per household, as long as we're able to determine the number of households, then we should be able to do a population estimate over any area that we want to define. And that gives us the ability to go in and just select one area that we want to and not only come up with a count of structures, what they're used for, but then also give us kind of a rough estimate of what the population might be within any localized area. And we can do that at the local level. Oh, wrong one. We can do that at the local level, or we can look at population density at the county level as well. In between those years, where the official census data might be a little bit out of date just because we're encountering so much development. Another product that we produce is for the sheriff's office dealing with sex offender registration. We have a mapping program specifically for them that shows what residents might be eligible to live in certain properties based on criteria that the state has legislated. And the goal in this is just to try to automate and speed up the process as much as possible so that when people come in that these things can be quickly determined. All right. The last thing I'd like to look at this morning is looking at the county's GIS as a return on investment. And one of the ways that I think that we've been able to try to keep down the cost of doing business is through collaboration, and mostly with the city of Springfield and with city utilities. And at one point in the GIS world, we in the city of Springfield and city utilities all had our own GIS base maps that we maintained independently. And that was fine, unless you wanted to share data. And of course, as you can imagine, then nothing was even remotely close to lining up. And so several years ago, we got together and made the decision to consolidate services. And what that ended up being was that each of us maintained separate data layers based off the same base map. And we reduced the duplication of work. And that way everything lines up. Today, we're able to do things that maybe the city of Springfield is not always able to do. And they're able to help us in ways that we're not able to do ourselves. And so it's a good relationship that I think saves everyone money. We also pool our resources whenever we fly aerial photography. And that also reduces the overall cost as well. Currently, we have 41 different air photo flights in our digital database, starting back in 1936 and going to one that the city flew just a few months ago in 2025. And I was not a part of the 1936 flight, but as you can imagine, it was not a complete flight of the county, and the resolution is not particularly great. It actually looks better the farther away you stand. If you stand back a ways and you kind of squint, then it looks really nice. The resolution is great on these, but many of the older flights were originally delivered to us in paper format or in film. We have several flights that were flown by the state and federal government that we were able just to download for free off the internet. But the benefit of having all of these is it really gives you a snapshot in time of what was on the ground whenever these were flown. And it helps us keep all of these other data layers up to date without having to go out into the field as much. And with all of these things, I think it helps to work on a return for investment, because having all of this data available to us, to the county, reduces at least some of the need for field verification. It increases the speed of the decision-making process. It increases the scope of the work that can be completed in projects. It decreases the need for paper maps. It decreases individual requests through the use of publicly available maps. And it decreases the duplication of services through cost sharing and through work sharing as well. All right. I tend to talk very fast when I'm up in front, so I don't know where I am on time, but does anybody have any questions? That's all I had. Any easy questions? Angela. Okay, the area that we ran through there is, this is James River Freeway and National. And so if you head up a little bit north on the thing, that's Cox South Hospital and Primrose right in through there. And so really what that was an area that we had actually on the 1936 photos, and I stayed in the same area as we transferred through that. The original photos, there wasn't hardly very much there, and so I thought that was a good spot to go. So, see, Justin, yeah.
Yeah, so I know in an area that's as densely populated as Greene County, we'd have to have this more robust mapping system of layers and all this. But how do small counties feel? Like, do they have any of this, or, is there a basic minimum level that they would have to have this type
I
of service?
think, and Conan, I know you can help me with this. I know that there are statutes that like property boundaries have to be done, maintained digitally. And so, a lot of companies, a lot of counties, if they don't have the ability to do that in-house, there are companies that can contract and do that with and stuff and actually do a really good job. One of the neat things that you can do is you can go through and, you just Google some of these counties and add the word GIS to it. And a lot of them will have a public map viewer that you can go through and look at.
Statutorily, the assessor has to keep a map of all of the data that they collect. So every assessor would have some sort of a map. And then there are companies that, they want the business, so they sell this type of business to the assessors. And some of them do it, some of them don't. It all depends on their own funding.
Yeah. Is there another question? Yeah, Shane.
What technology, since you've started in the field, is maybe your favorite tool? Maybe that progression, I'm sure you've seen quite a bit of progression. You talk about that a little bit.
What my favorite tool is since I started?
Like makes your life easier. Like,
Oh, it makes my life easier.
maybe that's better.
Probably the help with aerial photography and how much it's changed. Whenever I first started, and I started, I'll start my 32nd year here in this fall. But whenever, yeah, oh yeah, I'm just now 40. So, but you would have the sheets of the air photo stuff, and some of you all that working with us have seen some of these. The resolution on these maps were not particularly great, and sometimes what we would get would be a photocopy of the original Mylars, and so you'd look at this, and I'm like, I can't tell whether that's a house or a tree, or sometimes it could be a stand of cows that were all got together. I mean, it was really hard to tell. Now you could tell property lines and you could tell other stuff, but just having the resolution and being able to go through, there are so many products today that are available, not only with Google Street View, but with Google products, but with the air photography that we have. And we also have the products where it takes the 45-degree angle, of the air photos when it takes it at the time. And so just being able to do things in-house, I think is a big deal. When I first started, when we were doing the readdressing of the county, I was probably in a car verifying stuff in the field 2-3 days a week because there just was not anything on my desktop that I could use that. Now I don't get out maybe once a year.
Google Earth now.
Uh-huh.
You have Google Earth at your disposal.
Yeah. Have a lot of tools, a lot of good tools. And there are all kinds of stuff. If you got the money, there's all kinds of stuff out there that you could spend money on that would make it easier, but it gets ridiculous. Yeah.
So talking about flying this actual airplane versus satellite now, or?
Yeah, they're still doing this with airplanes. And I actually, just personal opinion, I think the next step beyond aerial photography will probably be getting into drones. We're already seeing the City of Republic is already using drones to augment their aerial photography on their website for their GIS map. And so I think that's the next step. I always thought it was going to be, when I was in school, they were talking about reading license plates from outer space with the thing. But I think just personal opinion. Yeah.
What's the resolution of the 25 city blue?
I think it is probably 2-inch, but it might be 1-inch pixel. And that's compared to what we were getting, it was probably 3 feet years ago, and some of them are even less than that. Some of the stuff that we get from the USDA, from the National, I can't think of the acronym now, but it's NAIP, yeah, is even less, resolution than that. I think it might be, it's not 10 meter, but it's pretty bad. So, but it's good enough to be able to tell if there's a house there or not, and that kind of stuff.
So what does that mean in layman's terms? 2 inches or whatever?
Well, basically what that is that each one of the pixels on the image represents an inch or 2 inches on the map, and so that gives you a whole lot more detail than you have if it was a 3-foot pixel. And so, you know, on the newer aerial photography we have, we can read, you could look down and you can tell the make and model. It's, pretty almost. So you can tell, you can look at pickups and you can tell between whether it's a Chevy, Ford, or Dodge. So it's pretty good. All right. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak.